And we are back. Good. We're back.
Uh,
I do just want to say one of these days we're going to do that, and I'm not going to deafen. We're going to go back to the very first time we live streamed this, and we're going to have the whole MST3K little border on the bottom. So to introduce everybody to those names that you just saw go by during the wonderful intro that was designed for us by the person who originally put together the Foundry Roundtable, Drogan 1701. He put together that really great opening there for us. And in that opening, it introduces our cast, though it doesn't introduce the people that are playing the characters in that cast. We have our captain, Marcus Graves, who is played by Duncan Idaho, a Foundry author who put together the Starfleet security missions before the Foundry was sunsetted a couple years ago. Duncan?
howdy. I am the captain, and I take no responsibility for the madness that is about to ensue, which means I take total responsibility for that madness, because I'll probably be largely creating it.
There may or may not be a court-martial involved. We don't talk about that.
The ship's first officer is played by another former Foundry author. Lennis Kendra has created herself in the game with the character of Lennis Kendra, who is helping to explore a little bit of the Bajoran side of things. She is the ship's first officer, unfortunately feeling a little under the weather and can't join us tonight. As they have a young acting ensign in their household, the player for Quentin Reynolds, the chief science officer, is also not with us tonight. He is seeing after a wonderful acting ensign, which means their toddler who is, graduating out of acting ensign. We hear that she's on her two toddly little feet now and going to be running around soon. We have our ship's counselor / chaplain, because the ship has an all faiths chapel, mainly due to the fact that there are a number of Starfleet races who do have religious observances, and having an all faiths chapel on board is a good thing. But knowing that we have a very powerful Betazoid, his name is Victor Waitley, and he has shown quite a bit more power telepathically than one might expect. He is played by tonight's channel host here, the grumpy old Nord.
Greetings and salutations, Chaplain Waitley. All counseling sessions, as mandated by Starfleet Command, shall resume at their regularly scheduled. Please, formal.
We have our ship's chief engineer, and Zag, who is playing the chief engineer, Rick Tier, who is a race of his own design, the Soar, who genetically occupy an area between the Gorn and the Saurian, being a reptilian species. Baz is also a longtime Foundry author and had quite a few missions when they sunsetted the Foundry. Rick Tier is the first of his race in Starfleet, and that is Baz, who also serves as our game's what's the right word here? Game
technical
expert.
assistant.
Right. Anyway, that's Baz.
Some game systems call that role the narrator.
Anyway, that's Baz.
Yes, I am the technical guy in all things on board the Reliant. The game system, the ship system, the system that you have to make up on the spur of the moment to do things with the Borg.
The pilot of our ship is a young Ibby, only the third or fourth. I keep forgetting whether it's third or fourth. Ibby that has actually joined Starfleet. It was a race created by Duncan. The Ibby are a race created by Duncan, not was. And one of our players, a friend of ours from Twitter, named Jarlin, decided that wanted to bring the Ibby race to the forefront of storytelling here, and we have a pilot who is also really talented in life sciences, named Kara Junrani.
Good evening, everyone. Geraldine here. COVID is on the rise, so remember, wear a mask and try not to go out.
Thank you. I cannot agree more. We have our chief medical officer, a half human, half trill character with a lot of fun, interesting background. He's a bit of a Starfleet legacy, coming from a family of ship commanders and admiralty, older siblings who have served with distinction on other ships. Dr. Eli O'Connor is played by our friend Nick, who saw our call for players when we put it out on Twitter and jumped on and joined us and has brought Dr. O'Connor to life through 15 episodes now.
I'm Eli O'Connor, and I'm all in.
All in. We have a number of being that our ship is a ship with 120 crews. There are a number of NPCs that do wander the halls and make their way in and out of the stories that we tell, including the early adventures of Ensign Tardigrade, who will one day be a lieutenant, an exocomp that is slowly gaining a sentience that we know is possible from having seen Peanut Hamper in recent episodes of Star Trek. I mean, who doesn't love Peanut Hamper? The ship's security officer is an android. Basically, imagine Bruce Maddox is a young man. The ship's security officer is named Bryce, and an assistant in the medical bay. There is a liberated Borg who sometimes seems to be more Borg than human. Now, where we're going to be picking up tonight, the crew had just found an unknown deck aboard their ship, counted by the fact that the time in between decks 7 and 8 took longer on the turbo lift than any other movement between two decks had occurred. And that caused the security chief, Bryce, the engineer, Rick Tier, and the science officer, Quentin Reynolds, to investigate. And when they did, they found essentially a floor 7.5 that really is nothing larger. It's not larger than a very small science lab, honestly, and it bore investigation. And so the three of them investigated and went on inside, climbed up through the turbo lift and went inside. And when they did, the ship lost all ability to track them, which put the ship's first officer on edge. And she went down there to check on her, to check on the crew with the captain's blessing. And inside of the room, in addition to a mysterious deck appearing, there was also a crew member who hadn't reported in all day long at for her engineering shift. And yes, Umbra Song, exactly. It was the episode last week was called Deck 7 is Missing. And it was based entirely on the episode that you just quoted that you just brought up in the chat. Gray 17 is Missing, one of my favorite episodes of sci-fi ever. But when those three, when Rick Tier, Bryce, and Quentin made their way into the room, the door sealed behind them. They lost all ability to communicate with the ship. The ship lost all ability to communicate with them. And Ensign Tardigrade tried using his spore jumping capability to get into the room, and he couldn't. Something in the composition of the metals of the room popped him back out, to the point that he could not use his abilities. It really frustrated him, and with security in tow and looking to find her crew, First Officer Kendra had gone there. And inside of the room, I'm going to let us pick up right there, because sure, Nord will bring up the picture eventually. It's still on board the Reliant, so the picture of where things are don't have to change. But inside the room with Rick Tier, Bryce, and Quentin Reynolds, an older man stepped out of a very strange transporter device. It was just 6 lights on the floor that formed a circle, and the person who stepped out of those lights was an older version of a Star Trek Online character that many people have seen and encountered during their game. It's an older version of Franklin Drake. Not a young man by any means. He's got the scar down the side of his face. The lines, he's got the lines on his face of someone who has had to make probably decisions that he didn't like to make, quite potentially. And the room that they are in for the audience might now begin to take shape, even though for the characters it still is a very confusing place. There's a small desk with just a kind of a portable pad unit on it. Looks like a place someone does some work. There's a device, a circle of computer consoles in the center of the room, above which is, I can only describe it by saying that it looks like a smaller version of the time map that Daniels had in his ready room when you would see him on Star Trek Enterprise. So it's a smaller version of that time map suspended. It's a holographic thing suspended above these computers. And when Drake stepped out of the transporter, he took a look at who was with him, canceled something with a tap to his wrist, and the Quentin, Rick Tier, and Bryce would realize that they had been gassed. But not by anything deadly, by something that just was calming. It feels a little heavy in your lungs, Rick, but that's about the extent of it. Bryce looks totally unaffected. He is, after all, an android. So he looks totally unaffected. And Franklin Drake looked at the three of you, and he said, trying to remember his exact words, he said, "Well, not who I would have expected, but I'm going to need to speak to your captain and command crew as soon as possible." Yes, very much like that time map, except small above a computer. That's perfect, Nord. That it exists above a bank of computers and not around the people that are viewing it. Instead, it's something kind of in the center. And Rick, you are the one who is the player that is present in the situation when this man steps off of the transporter pad, and you also are a command officer on this ship. He says, "I'm going to need to speak with your captain and your command crew as soon as possible." This was unexpected.
Well, I'm just trying to think whether or not he'd be calm enough, like he'd be like more interested in the transporter that just lit up than the request. He sort of like pauses for a moment, looks between the pad, Bryce, and this unknown older gentleman, as he will look at.
Bryce
I,
says, Bryce sees you deciding what to do, and he looks at the guy and he says, "If you'll enable our ability to talk to our crewmates, we'll make that happen." And the old gentleman says, "We're going to need it to be in this room. I'm going to explain things properly. Here's the code," and he hands Bryce a chip. He says, "Here's the code that your people will need to stop the turbo lift at the proper junction." The doors slide open. Outside of the room, some security officers are waiting on the gantryways of the turbo lift, including Kendra, who is out there as well, and Tardigrade. You are now able to see inside of the room that you couldn't break into. As you can see, it looks like your 3 crew members are. It looks like they're fine. It looks like they are doing okay. And as soon as those doors open, Bryce taps his comm badge and says, "Lieutenant Bryce to Captain Graves.
Graves here. Is everything all right down there?
Everything is under control. The ship's not on fire. Nothing's going to blow up. There's someone here that we don't. There's someone here that we don't know who wants to speak with the entire command crew.
Someone who just happened to be living between 2 of our decks.
He wasn't living here, sir. He transported it. There's some very high tech equipment here. I'll let Rick speak more to what he's seeing. Definitely would have more expertise in that than I would. I don't think he's a threat, sir." And
right.
Bryce looks over at Drake when he says, "I don't think he's a threat, sir." And the channel stays open. Rick, do you want to give a report on what you're seeing technologically speaking?
Yeah, first Rick will just sort of poke his head out into the general wide area, get a breath, and then sort of have a slight cough, and then go actually analyze what's going on with this. His like brow will furrow a bit, and as he goes through and analyze the transporter pad.
Yell at me for not having the drive open, but it's open very quickly. You can make a work in this. All right, so Baz, I think I want to call it insight engineering and not reason engineering to determine what you're looking at here and what these computers might be doing. However, our focus of experimental technology will apply. Now, that means that you have a target number of 12, but your critical range is anything 5 and below.
We don't have any momentum, do we?
Not yet. The first roll of the game.
Alright, so this will just be a straight 2d20 roll.
With 2 successes. Oh my goodness.
Party.
You are quite able to get a pretty good idea of what you're looking at, Rick. That transporter it's a kind of tech that Starfleet Academy hasn't had installed in decades, because mostly it looks like transporters. It looks like a transporter unit that is made for short range being anywhere on a planetary surface. It reminds you, technologically speaking, of the transporter doors that existed when we saw in the Picard series, Picard to step through and go visit Starfleet Academy, right? It reminds you of that, but on a grander scale. It seems like each one of these 6 kind of light pinions on the floor can connect to any of the others, forming a kind of a transporter gateway, so that someone who used this could theoretically go anywhere that there was power enough to send them. And from looking at the computers and the readouts that you see off to the right, there is power enough. It doesn't even take very much. Now, that with your 2 successes instead of just like 1, that tells you that this technology is beyond what Starfleet has right now. There's no way that the transporter that you're seeing should be able to work without an amount of power that the Reliant does not generate. However, you can tell from the computer readouts that it's barely even where he the period of time where he popped through the transporter, it did not use a considerable amount of energy. And you have a strong feeling that the thing that you're seeing, the hologram, the time map above the computers, you have a very strong feeling that is some sort of a scanning readout of something that you're not 100% sure what they're scanning. That's the best that your current knowledge can tell you.
All right. So, in terms of this transporter pad is extremely efficient, but it could be going anywhere. I don't really know where they might have came from.
Understood. So, he wants to speak with us?
That is what he's telling us.
That's what he's told us, sir.
All right. We'll be down there.
All right.
And Marcus closes the channel, and then he taps his communicator again and says, Marcus to Cole.
This is Cole. Go ahead.
Do you know anything about a potentially interplanetary transporter system that was built between Deck 7 and Deck 8?
Oh?
Meet us down there.
Do you have an interplanetary transport system built between Deck 7 and Deck 8?
I didn't. Well, apparently so. And I'd appreciate it if you came down there with us.
I'll meet you at the turbo lift.
Thank you much.
Meanwhile, Kara stands up and makes sure that she has her phaser with her. So, someone got into our ship and built something that shouldn't be here.
Or it was part of the original design of the ship. I'm not ruling anything out right now.
To be honest, I find the second possibility more scary than the first.
Yeah, I think it's also the more likely one, given our mission. So, Marcus is going to take a quick sort of stalk around him and see who is on the bridge at the moment.
Okay. Eli had gone back down to the sick bay. You had already sent Kendra down there. Of command staff, Kara is the only other member of command staff on the bridge right now.
So Marcus delegates the sort of acting. He delegates to the highest ranking officer who's there, who I think is insert name Klingon here, or insert name here Klingon.
Yep.
And proceeds to the turbo lift in just gestures to with Kara to come along. He didn't notice that she has.
Kara turns and repeats the gesture to Oakley, and then follows.
Does Oakley follow? That's something I didn't point out. Our friend Starfarer Theta So sometimes he plays along, but is a little bit gun shy. So he types in responses for us in the chat that, wow, holy cow, Nord has them showing up top there. That's awesome. Nord, you're awesome. So yes, this little exocomp beeps and follows along. And the turbo lift ends to take you down, and at the entrance, the turbo lift actually stops at deck 7, and she's not wearing her captain's uniform. She is dressed in civilian regulars, and she is holding her captain's pips. She doesn't have them pinned on anywhere. She's holding, like, it's I think, is it called a brocade? I'm not sure. It's like this little piece of board, essentially, that holds ranking officers' pips or pins, or and she's got that in her hand, and she says, "I hope you don't need me in uniform. I can change."
I don't think our visitor much cares.
She steps into the turbo lift and joins you. And before they arrive, just so that Rick knows, when you say could go from anywhere, and as Bryce adds, as Bryce had just said, I don't think that I don't think he's a threat, Captain. When he looks over at you, Rick, and he says, "When?" And says it low enough that you and Quentin can both hear it, and behind his eyeglasses, I bet you Quentin would raise an eyebrow like, what? When this guy, he says, "Any when," in response to you saying could come from anywhere, and the turbo lift door opens to the room, and Captain, Kara, Kendra is already in the room. I'm not gonna try to play Kendra and Quentin. But your captain, Captain Graves, Kara, and are you gonna call for Eli? He is part of your command crew too.
Oh, yeah. So assume that Eli has been... Graves sent a notification to meet them there.
Right on. So all of you are stepping into this room, essentially, with an older Franklin Drake, and he is not dressed in those wonderful, like, deep black clothes that he has on when we meet him in when we meet him in game. Instead, this Franklin Drake is wearing that really, I don't know what the costume designers were thinking, but that kind of like straps of black, that what Daniels is wearing in that picture there that Nord has up, because I keep popping back and forth. That's what this Franklin Drake is wearing. He's wearing that uniform of I guess they're temporal agents, and he smiles, but a very small smile. It's just the left side of his kind of the left side of his mouth just curls up the slightest bit, and he says, "So, you're the one that I would have expected to find this place." And he looks over at Oakley, actually. "And I certainly wouldn't have guessed that they'd have made you one of the command crew. But
just as we step through the door, Kara's going to try and keep herself between this new person she doesn't know and Cole and Graves.
Okay.
She's trying to do so quietly, but
Marcus is going to interject with this individual making that comment. Haney just points to Ensign Tardigrade and says, "He's an excellent judge of character."
I would say so. I truly expected that it would have been the exocomp to find this room, not you others, not to But to find a point on it, the exocomp just goes places that most humanoids cannot. My name is Franklin Drake. He steps forward and extends his hand. I work for Starfleet's temporal investigation.
I'm sure you
And he
do.
stops. He actually he goes, I work for Starfleet's, and it's like he takes a moment, like he isn't even sure. You can almost tell anybody with any and Waitley certainly. Waitley was on the bridge. I did forget that. Unless he was back down in sickbay and went with Eli. Regardless, Waitley is there.
Last I remember, Waitley was still in his quarters.
No, you had gone to sickbay, if you remember.
Oh, okay.
Let's basically say that the same notification that would have gone to Eli would have gone to
gone to Waitley. And you know that he isn't sure. You know what he's about to say, but you know that he isn't sure if he should say it like the moment before he says it, he's still not sure if he should say Temporal Investigations Division. And he says, and I work with Starfleet's Temporal Investigations. You can forgive your crew for not knowing that this place existed. It didn't exist until yesterday, and that it had always existed.
I see. So he kind of gives that a good thought. And one of Marcus's, what was it? Focuses is temporal theory.
Nice. This is what he just said. Means that they weren't. That means it's temporal theory. I love that. What he just said is that in terms of your timeline, that room only started existing yesterday, probably at Deep Space K7. But because of the fact that they needed it to always be there and be undetected, they needed to do it in the past as well. It's telling you that, yes, this room has always been on your ship, but in truth, it's only been on your ship for like a day. And
yeah.
And it's hard to wrap your mind around at first, but you have temporal theory, and that means you studied it at the academy. And
Marcus is appreciating his one academic hobby right now.
What he just said actually could happen. It is not beyond the realm of when he says your officer, don't. I wouldn't condemn your officers for not finding the room. It didn't exist until yesterday. You can see exactly what he means. And he also moves his hand to point at the map of time that is swirling above the computers behind him now. And he says, the Reliant will eventually make a bit of time travel that it will make a travel through time that is very unique and that our people wish to study. Your layover at K7 allowed us to put an observation room here. Had your officers not discovered us, quiet agents simply reporting nothing out of the ordinary until what is bound to occur occurs.
So, with this thing that is bound to occur, and you telling me about this event that is bound to occur, you're pretty certain that regardless of what my opinions are of this situation, that I'll proceed through and effectively help you in whatever way I can, or at least knowingly or unknowingly do the thing that you expect me to do.
Not me. I don't expect that you help me. I'm merely an observer. But since we, as observers, have now been observed, we can remove this chamber quickly as it was placed here when we are back at K7. And we can erase its existence from having existed on board your ship. If that's your desire, you are the captain. And it is in the future. It is not any time in the near present that we expect you will be traveling through time, unless you want to save a lot of lives since our presence was discovered earlier than expected.
The saving a lot of lives part is what I was expecting. So let's just get down to business about how we go through this.
A much
With the best
younger
possible
version of me made some very bad choices. I made very bad choices when I was younger. I worked for people and with people that cause an undue amount of harm in the universe. One of those pieces of harm was dealing with, you'll find in your database, a race called the Davidians. They are attempting, even now as we speak, to utilize the physics of time travel to change the alignment of celestial bodies back in the 23rd century to grant them an advantage here in your 25th century. As I said, a younger version of me worked with some very bad people and made some very bad mistakes. And I sent someone, not you, but I sent someone back in time to deal with these Davidians, not thinking of the choices they might make when they were in the past. And one of those choices was the Constitution class starship 170 NCC 1707 USS. What was the name of the ship? Was it the Hood in the episode that I'm
Reuben
I think
James.
so. Yeah.
He goes,
Yeah.
he goes, yes, the ship, the Constitution class NCC 1707 USS Hood. Ship was in the past disabled by the agents that I sent, and with no knowledge of what was coming, the Hood was left to the tender mercies of a Klingon fleet that arrived soon after those agents were done with their work. Hood was not supposed to be damaged when that Klingon fleet arrived.
Wait, one quick thing. It was the Reuben James.
Oh, the Reuben James. Sorry. Okay. Not the Hood. The Reuben James. Yes. Sorry. There we go.
Timeline change.
Timeline change imminent. He says the Reuben James was not meant to be destroyed that day. By all calculations, and if you know temporal theory, Captain, and he turns to look at the he turns to look at the map of time, and he draws his finger through a piece of it so that it kind of opens up the data. And any of you who have so Rick, you can see the engineering data. Quentin, who's not here, can see the scientific data that it opens up. Marcus, you see what he's showing you as Reuben James had 2 or 3 possible fates that day, only one of which resulted in its destruction. And this man, this Franklin Drake, he says, with only one strand of time, one potential future showing Reuben James annihilated and destroyed that day, there are 396 crew members on board that ship will die unless something is done. Within this room, I have the technology and can very quickly teach you how to send your ship back to the time just before the Klingon fleet arrives to get you on board the Reuben James. You will, of course, have to wear time timeline appropriate clothing and uniforms, but you should be able to get aboard the Reuben James, restart their primary engine, and especially with an engineer as skilled as yours, get that ship in a condition to at least get out of there.
If I may, Mr. Drake, why would you send us to the past and risk making the same mistake again, not knowing what decisions we may make?
Or an insertion would be on board only a ship that no longer exists. The former team dealt with both the Reuben James and a number of individuals within the station, within the Drozana station of that time. It's a matter of it is a matter of timing. And he kind of half smiles at saying it's a matter of timing. He says, what I mean is that we cannot stop what the other team has done. But what you can do is fix what they have done and return without interacting with anything besides that which they broke.
Kara hums at this and cocks an eye at Marcus. Sir, it's your orders, but I can fly anything, and even an old constitution I could get out of there.
I need to, if you decide to do this. If not, it is not a failure for the Temporal Investigations Division. There is one of our most fortunate orders allows us to make decisions at times like this, which must be upheld. I can look at this time map, and I would love to, before I leave and before you decide whether this is off your ship or not, Captain Graves, I would love to show you how it works. And if nothing else, leave it in your care when we go.
Graves has a thought about that, except he kind of pushes that thought aside, and he sort of focuses around back to what Drake had said earlier about being involved with nefarious people who had destructive impacts. And that hit him at this particular time because he is really tired. He hasn't slept in God knows how long.
True.
True. So he says at this point, we'll see about the tech. I think the deck is fine to stay, and the events as they are allowed to proceed. As is, what you're providing is confirmation, and I think that's fine. As far as help, as we can set this according to our own timetable, my only request for helping is just letting my crew get a night's sleep.
He smiles.
We just destroyed a Borg Unimatrix, and at that, we're probably fine to restart an old Constitution class. But yeah, we need just to take a quick breather. In the morning, we can begin.
He smiles and he says, I'll meet you on K7 then, if that's acceptable.
That's acceptable.
And he steps back over to the 6 strange lights on the floor, and he looks over at Rick, Tyr, and Quentin, and he says, truly, any when? And the lights beam up from the floor to the ceiling, and his body just kind of disappears in a wave of light, leaving your command crew there on the on the deck with tardigrade, some security officers outside. I do have the worst thing happening to me. Sorry to this for everyone. My computer wants to restart and it won't take no for an answer. So I'm going to let it do that. It might take a minute, and I imagine you guys can have a good long discussion over what you want to do while my computer is doing that. It's just saying it won't take no for an answer. I'm really sorry.
Understood. No problem at all. So,
And,
Mark,
and I'll be back.
Marcus,
soon.
This
Hey!
would be like one of
So-
the perfect times for one of the Mead Hall's traditional technical difficulty screens.
We're good. So Marcus just takes a look around and says, looks to Rick, Quentin, and Maddox and basically says, "Are we good?" Like, just as like a confirmation of, are we really secure in this? Would be a Rick response.
Well, Rick is sort of like you can tell he's sort of distracted, like he's trying to go over things, and unlike you, he's not really well versed in temporal mechanics, so it sort of like gets himself sort of mentally tied up in knots. And it takes a moment for him to shake out of that, mechanically, we have all kinds of information that we need. This is really a lot to deal with all of a sudden. The gas, this temporal mechanics thing came out of nowhere, and I think I would definitely like a break, but it is definitely doable.
And okay. So, and then, we'll come up with a plan for how we deal with the incursion, but based on what we've done before, I don't really see too much of a problem in this. Especially with Drake sending us down there. I have reasons to believe that this is easily doable. So, with that, do we have any thoughts about interacting in the 23rd century?
I think I'll look really cute in one of those skirts.
Noted.
The only question is my looks, I guess. I do not want to be...
Eli
I
might be able to...
Go ahead, you're the captain.
Okay. Eli might be able to help with that. Also, holographic technology, we might even consult a holographic tailor to see if he has any perspective on this. Chaplain.
And I was going to
Did you get any read off of our...
Oh, I was just going to mention that when it comes to the other aliens, how many new aliens have we seen on a daily basis? You don't usually go around asking everyone their species and their history. So long as you act like you belong, you'll be surprised how few people will give you a second look.
Noted. Yeah, we might be able to work with that. Also plan for a plan B, so yeah, let's keep our options open, but I like just playing it straight. But Chaplain, did you get any read off of our visitor?
So I was actually planning on asking Q when I got a chance, but sadly I didn't get the chance, and now Q is gone AFK. So we have a Q in stream chat, Kitty, because Kitty RPs a Q and STO, and since Hippie's name as GM for the game is Q, I'm just gonna roll with me here. I'm going to name Kitty as interim GM. I don't know if I have that authority, but I'm going to do it anyway. What did Waitley read off of the future Franklin Drake?
This will end in tears.
No good can become of this.
As we wait on that answer, does anyone else have a reaction?
I mean, if you're asking me honestly, sir, I'd love the chance to fly an old Constitution. Back when they were top of the line Starfleet tech, those ships are famous. The ability to save one notwithstanding, of course. Think of how many lives we'll be saving.
I really want to go on one of those ships. It's like a museum, but alive.
All right. I'll basically pencil you in for the away team. And he just sort of he gives he actually smiles at Eli, which may be the first time you've actually seen him smile.
Kara looks over at Rick. So I guess the general idea is we beam on board, you get the power running, I get us the hell out of Dodge?
That would be the basis of it. We can prepare by finding out what exactly might be compatible we could bring back with us to jumpstart the process.
Oh yeah, good point. Whatever you do, people, don't leave anything behind when we leave there.
Waitley glances down at his enhanced tricorder and says, "Oh, so I should definitely keep a firm grip on this. Understood."
Kara gasps.
Yes.
Is that the one with the purple stripe?
No, this is the one with the black stripe.
Ah, the Goth edition.
At this moment, Lieutenant Tardigrade starts trying to reach up into the time stream.
Kara goes over and pats Oakley and gives him a reassuring hug. I don't think we'll be able to take you along. You'll raise questions. I've heard that there have been strange mechanical constructs back in the 23rd century, but, well, I'm sorry, Oakley.
Waitley raises an eyebrow and kind of does that head tilt he does when he has a really bad idea and says, you do realize there were a number of mechanical constructs that at that time would be. There are hollow disguises used for Oakley.
Well, I mean, I guess that's up to the captain, but I wanted to go ahead and tell Oakley that, we all believe in him anyway, just in case. Oh, that reminds me. Sir, Oakley recorded everything that happened in this room. I've asked him to encrypt it using his own protocols and make it for your eyes only. I don't know that we'll ever have a use for the information, particularly if everything the man said is true, but better safe than sorry.
It's good to have a fallback plan. John, any thoughts?
Oh, Hippie's back.
I am back. My computer is successfully happy with me. I'll tell you. After Franklin Drake disappears in a beam of light, Captain Cole doesn't make a big deal about it. She just says out loud, "He's intel of some kind, whether it's strictly temporal, I don't know, but he's intel."
I got that feeling as well, and I think that also would.
Also, I just want to point out, Waitley, you know that he didn't lie about anything.
Totally noted and is conveyed to the rest of the crew.
Yeah, go ahead, Marcus. I just wanted to make sure that Waitley knew that.
So, Cole, you have a lot of experience with Constitution class. I think you would be an appropriate choice for this away mission, if you feel up to it.
I think the best thing, or honestly, the best thing for me to do is to see to my crew back on K7, asking for a chance to rest. Not a bad idea. Crew is as stressed as mine. We just lost our ship, and we just lost a lot of friends.
Very duly noted. We'll get you back to K7, and we'll take care of things here.
So as you all exit the turbo lift to get some rest as the ship flies back to K7, is there anything? There's only one specific scene that I know of that I want to see happen on the way back to K7. Unless there's something that anybody else wants to.
Well, I'll do a quick interjection. Kara does spend the time to go ahead and replicate herself a red mini skirt with the appropriate rank insignia and some boots.
Okay. Eli, you know that sending Rick or Kara is going to require a minor amount of cosmetic surgery for both of them. Any alien going would have the same issue. You're going to have to make them appear as human or Vulcan or a race that was known at that time as possible.
Kara,
Actually, I was going to say that as Kara asks Rick Tier about replicating something to make her Acacian, since she'll still have a tail. Hello, disguise.
That really is the realm of your chief medical officer. Knows he's got some work to do.
So the one thing Marcus would want to do, I don't know if you want to play this out now or later, is just check in on sickbay.
Okay. That was one of the things that we were going to get to was as people are beginning to be able to rest and head to their quarters and rest. You've had a really long, couple of days, Eli. And honestly, Dr. 3 helped more than... she didn't help you, deal with everything that was going on emotionally by any means. But she was very good at her job, and that made it. After a point, you were able to. You were probably able to trust the situation enough that you weren't looking over your shoulder to make sure she was doing everything right every 5 minutes, if you know what I mean. Does that make sense, Eli?
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that after a point you were like, nah, she's really good at what she does. I don't have to keep checking up on her. The same way that and it would be the same feeling you got that you eventually got watching Ged do his work, the Tellarite doctor. And you and she both sign off after what essentially is a really long day, and Ed, uh, Ed picks up the coffee mug in the chief medical officer's office because you know that when you're not there, whoever is on duty as like acting chief for the moment uses that office. And right now, Ed has told you guys basically, hey, look, I've got the stamina, get some rest, I'll stay up. And he walks in there and you realize to your dismay, almost, maybe your dismay, I don't know. But as you're walking out of sickbay to go to your quarters, the realization strikes you that you've been drinking out of the same coffee mug that Ged drinks out of.
Okay, that's my Bozeman Titans mug, damn it.
Yep, and
Wait.
And you see him putting coffee in it.
Question: is it my personal coffee? The one that's an abomination of caffeine.
No.
Damn.
Oh,
because that would have been funny.
He's just using the replicator like an instant coffee, like one of those instant coffee machines, and yeah, he ends up using. You're just like, huh? Okay, so Ged and I share a coffee mug. Okay then, and Doctor 3, the what it comes down to is that your patients in sickbay are there are 3 who are in coma, who are in what's the induced coma, and the others that are left in sickbay are recovering pretty quickly. For as surly as he can be, Ged is really good with getting people back on their feet. And if as you're leaving, the captain comes in, and I can almost imagine that you're going right to the back room to look at the back room graves. Am I correct?
He's actually just going to stop in the foyer.
Okay.
Like, he's just going to step right into the room and sort of look for either Ged or 3.
Ed is the one that is on duty by the time that you walk down in there.
And there's kind of this internal reaction of well, he did it almost of this is the one scenario I was hoping I wouldn't have to deal with, just because he has 0 energy left at this point. He's on fumes, and he's like, I have to try to navigate Ged. Ged is really competent and a great officer, but then there's the personality side, and I don't want to.
I know, it's
create
awesome.
An issue.
It's great, and he says
he's kind of
he'd look up from his desk and go, Captain.
He takes a minute because he's trying to process, as he does, of just sort of this run through the possibilities, and he just says at a certain point internally, just to hell with it all, and basically just kind of blurts out, "There's one of the Borg here. I want to find out how she's doing."
Which one, sir?
The Ibby.
Back room. And he comes over and doesn't actually clap your arm, but he puts his hand up as if to be back room, come here. And
I want to throw one thing in. I want to throw one thing in here. At first he doesn't move. He tries to stay in spot, he's hesitant to move, but then he just sort of he can't resist Ged at this point, so he's just dragged along.
Okay. So he gets you to the door of this back room where there are 3 bio beds that they have the patients that you see out in main sick bay. They may have like, a wound that is healing where they had an implant like in their cheek or in their arm or something. The Borg you see in this back room look just like Borg. Parts of parts of them, like the Romulan, for example, the entire like left arm from the elbow down has been replaced by mechanics that have been detached and are you're thinking, oh, they're already in Quentin's lab, where he's making the scans of these things. But they look very much like Borg, still, like they still have a lot of tech in them. And when you get to that door to that back room, Ged says, we're keeping them right now in induced coma because according to 3, they're going to be very confused when they're conscious and they can't hear the collective. That was the first part of the procedure, Captain, making sure that they were disconnected and couldn't cause and weren't in a position to cause danger to the Reliant beyond having Borg aboard. But they're going to be very confused when they wake up, and I'm guessing they're going to need the skills of a counselor, not a Tellarite. And he finishes the last slug of his coffee out of this Bozeman Titans mug, and then he goes, damn it, I'm out again.
And Graves is just sort of standing there, and he just says, for the last 3 months, I've been reading about Borg recovery and what that entails. And I didn't ever think I'd be standing here. And I just want to know.
You know her, huh?
We joined the academy together because my life fell apart and there was nothing left. And yeah, she just made it simple. And then I lost her. So
now you found her.
Yeah.
He found her, Captain.
The crew
sit
did.
down. And he pulls you back toward the CMO's office, and he goes, if you tell O'Connor that I have this in here, I quit. And he goes underneath the nearest bio bed and undoes one of the legs on the bio bed, and he opens it up and he takes out this small bottle and he says, Tellarite brandy, rare stuff. It'll help you sleep. And he pours like 2 fingers of it into the coffee mug, and he says, you're gonna have to use my mug.
Understood. And Graves is just following orders at this point.
In fact, that's what Ged does. Ged gives you a 2-finger, basically a Tellarite form of whiskey to help you sleep when you finally get there. And he says, like, we'll figure it out, Captain.
Like Graves at this point, like he's out, like he's on the like he's like sitting on a bio bed, correct?
Yeah. Ged's
so he
right
just
there
takes a swig. So he just takes a hard swig and just sort of sits there for a minute and then falls backwards. And he's just out.
He says and you actually do. You pass out in sick bay, and he goes, oh, tell anybody. And he turns on the bio bed so that it makes so that the temperature correction and everything starts on it, and you're gonna get probably the best night's sleep out of anybody in the crew, because you fell asleep with a doctor who'll take care of you while you sleep, right?
I object to that slightly. I have a dog.
I have a triple.
To make matters to make matters a little bit shorter with this next scene. You have just gotten back to your quarters after the day and doing a final check-in at the counselor's office and at the All Faiths Chapel, Whately. You had been in your quarters earlier and thinking about what infinity felt like, especially in the moments that it was stripped away from you, when there is a ding at your door.
Ding, fries are done. Ding, fries are done. Oh, I'm sorry. Say again. What was that? I caught it. I was making a bad joke.
There's a chime at your door.
Whately says, as he starts from his little reverie that he was in. He was actually in the middle of comprising a text message to Captain Graves, but he starts and says, "Permission to enter."
Door slides open, and Dr. 3 is standing there, and she says, "You're going to have a very hard few days, Chaplain."
He quirks an eyebrow and says, "What do you mean?"
She doesn't move her lips, and you hear her say, "Because you can hear me now. And if you go looking, you'll be able to find
her. He thinks back at her and says, "I could hear you anyway."
And she says, she speaks out loud again, and she goes, "Listen again, but listen with the mind of more than one." And her mouth doesn't move, and you hear, "You can hear me now." But it's not like telepathy. Not at all. It's like there's
I have a very strong feeling. It's more an ephemeral. It's not the telepathy that he's used to. It's a very ingrained. It's almost like it's internal thought, but you know it's coming from outside. Kind of
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
He responds exactly in kind and says, "Oh, you must be new here."
Oh, you must be new here. When you try to respond in kind, you can't.
Ooh.
And she gets your thought and she says, "Don't think to me, think to them." And she's still just standing at your door. And you're like in your quarters, having just come out of your reverie. And she goes, "Don't think to me, think to the infinity that's in your bloodstream now."
Yeah, he gives that little head tilt as if he just had an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And oh crap, I lost it. I had a thought and then I got distracted by stream chat. God damn it. I hate ADHD with a passion. What the fuck was I just thinking not 10 seconds ago?
Think to the infinity in your blood now.
So he does that little head tilt he does, and then he broadens his mind, and he basically does what he was trying to do the other night when he tried to reconnect with the collective, except he directs it more generally than
he's not so you're saying that you're saying that he's not thinking, like, he's not specifically saying, "I want to talk to the collective." He's just like thinking and letting himself feel whatever's out there to get it.
Kind of, yes.
Okay,
but more yeah, we'll go with that. Yes.
Because of course I rebooted my computer and everything. I have to reopen a drive because you have to make a roll. I love the drive full of your character sheets. You will be making an insight command check, which for you is a 15, and your target number is 15. None of your focuses apply. No.
I was gonna say
attainment of self-realization applies. So your target is 15, your critical range is 4 and below. 3 successes.
That would be a point of momentum.
That is a point of momentum. And you are able to understand what she means. Because when you reach out and you try to think, not at because your first attempt to try to like duplicate what she was letting, like how she was making you hear her, your first attempt, you just kind of fell back on muscle memory, as it were. You are a telepath, and so you have the muscle memory of how your telepathy works, and you just went, that your mind just automatically went there. But when she tells you to talk to the infinity in your blood now, you remember that, well, maybe you put together that she thinks of the collective as an infinity, because you suddenly feel like there are thousands upon thousands of tiny minds inside of you, but they're not developed. You sense the nanites inside of you. And when you think to the nanites what you want her to hear in that way, do it. But you're not directing your telepathy at her, you're directing it inward. And when you do that, she goes, perhaps the fact that you're a natural telepath will make things a little bit easier for you.
He looks at her. He gets that shit-eating grin that Whately sometimes gets when people know he's in that mood. He doesn't say anything, but he directs a thought directly to her mind, not via the collective, but like directly to her. What do you think got me in this mess in the place?
You say, what do you think got me in this mess in the first place? And she says, thinking that whatever's inside of you is bigger than infinity.
He raises an eyebrow. Okay, so I don't want to give spoilers for the viewers, but there is an underlying subplot.
See, the thing is that Whately doesn't even know what
he doesn't
means.
know anything about it. So he just he looks at her and he raises an eyebrow, and he actually speaks. He says, "What?"
He says, what got you into trouble in the first place? Thinking that whatever makes you as powerful among your kind as you are, greater than infinity. Try to use your mind against the Borg, and the Borg are infinity, Kaplan.
He gets a look of clarification, like he gets what she means. He thought she was saying something else.
And
again, still speaking, not thinking, says, I understand what you mean. That being said, am I clear for awaiting duty?
Might even be better for it.
Excellent. What was the meaning of your visit here?
Teach you about the fact that there's infinity in your blood. That's only the first lesson. There will be more. You should have coffee. I've remembered that I like coffee. Sickbay smells of it. She walks away muttering as your door slides shut. Back at K7, everybody gets a great night's rest.
Hey, hold on. Sorry.
Yeah,
I
got
to
another
say
thing,
something,
too.
but I wanted to say something before that scene ended.
Okay, what do you want to say?
She leaves, and he goes back to the pad in his hand, and he sends a message to Graves. And he makes a brief addendum to what he'd already been typing when Dr. 3 came in.
Yeah.
He edits it to say, I have just been cleared for away Team B. I do believe I would be a great benefit for this mission. If you feel it, not necessary. What's the word I'm looking for? If you feel it advantageous, I would greatly like to accompany you.
Cool. And as you fall asleep, you realize that it's not your own skill set that you're in tune with. You know less about medicine than you do about psychology. That's just your thing, right? That's your training. But you feel like you're potentially
So he is an actual medical doctor. He's a psychiatrist, not just a psychologist.
Okay. So you have had the training, but your specialization obviously has always been the mind.
Yes.
You feel like feel a little more, maybe it's more when you wake up, but you feel more confident in your abilities as a doctor just in general when you wake up. That's where I want to leave that. You don't gain any points or anything in medicine or what have you. You just feel
it's just a role play thing.
Yeah, it's just a role play thing because Dr. 3 is uber confident in her abilities as a doctor. You feel a little more confident. So, anything else that people want to cover before we get back to K7?
I was actually going to do something the morning of, but
okay, go ahead.
I wanted to see if Duncan wanted to do something before then.
I just wanted to leave a note that Lieutenant Tardigrade spent like his remaining time just drawing a large number of things with crayons.
Awesome. Well, you know that when you get back to K7, there's it's not K7. There's a ship that you're meeting. I'm trying to remember the name of it. The Saratoga. All right, in 2 weeks. The Saratoga sounds right. Yeah, I'm forgetting. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
I forget. But we're doing the transfer, which means he's going to the Klingon ship. So I don't know if we named that, but yeah, he's going on summer camp.
There's a ship that's ready to take the Texas crew and the injured Borg and basically ready to help Graves by making him not have to stop at K7. That's
okay.
What the ship was for, if I remembered correctly, because you were just going to head back to your mission, which, hey, your mission is what it is. Your mission is in the, you haven't received any further missions for the war zone. And so that means unless you receive something from Deep Space K7 in the next, few hours, you're probably cleared to head back to your own mission in the southernmost galactic southernmost position of the quadrant. However, you have someone who said they'd meet you in the morning and meet you at K7. But instead of meeting you at K7, he says, I'll meet you after the Saratoga. Sorry, I had forgotten momentarily about that. Yes, you do get to the Saratoga and you get a hail from is
this
Carnes. Everything's you do get a hail from Karn's ship when the Saratoga comes into view with you, and it's the second officer, the large, the big Klingon who has once tried to take over that ship, according to everything that you've heard so far. And he goes, "So, are you ready to send the small ugly child?"
Yes, he is ready to assist you or to show honor in his mission and bring honor to both of our great houses.
Oh, I've had to make my decision based on what we've been able to gather about your USS Reliant, what your mission entails in the area of space that you're in.
Indeed.
For a child who've impressed the general so much means your child must have great diplomacy skills. So, that has led me to my decision. Slath, my second coming aboard your ship, is quite skilled in ways of talk and compromise. He doesn't seem to like the word compromise.
Your choice will be honored to bring some pretty darn glorious battles into play.
I really doubt that Slath will want to be involved in any of your glorious battles. But regardless, he's ready to transport over on the crew transfers. Karn has been eagerly awaiting a small, ugly child in the transporter room all morning. So, the quicker we make this transfer, the quicker I can get us back on route to Kronos.
All right, understood. And he closes the channel there and then just taps his communicator and says, senior staff, we need to see someone off at the transporter room.
So, what time is this? Because the way I need to do things is timeline.
Early in the morning.
Okay, so
well, this is before Spaceball.
Yeah, but early in the morning is what I was.
Though,
Yeah, this is what I was looking for early in the morning because when people start waking up, that's when I was going to do this.
Okay.
Okay,
Hey,
so
real quick, Kara, whatever you have playing in the background, you should mute that.
I don't have anything playing in the background that I'm aware of.
It's coming through your mic.
Well, that could be my husband playing a video game over there, but there's not much I can do about that.
Okie dokie.
Anyway, basically, as soon as the duty shift starts and everybody starts waking up, Kara immediately goes down to the med bay and goes looking for Captain Cole. And she basically goes in with a small tray of food, and on there is a humanish breakfast along with a normal soda for herself. And she goes over and starts looking for the bed.
You know that Cole is no longer in the sick bay.
Well, Kara
Cole
starts
is
going
with-
down to the temporary quarters where Cole is then.
Okay, I was going to say, you would know that she's in temporary quarters with her crew.
Well, she does that then. But
Okay.
she goes down to the temporary quarters where Cole is with, some small breakfast stuff and a can of soda for herself. And Nala is, with her. And she basically taps on the door and goes to look around and see if Captain Cole is awake.
Captain Cole actually comes to the door. It's, her temporary quarters, and she looks at you and she says, Kara, good morning.
Good morning, Captain.
Just getting ready to leave, actually. I understand my crew will be shipping out here in, not too much longer.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy morning, so I thought I would take the opportunity to talk with you a couple of minutes. Over breakfast? She holds up the tray.
I don't usually eat breakfast, but she grabs the soda off of the tray that you had brought for yourself and starts to sip it. I don't really do breakfast, but what can I do for you?
Kara smirks and goes over to sit with Captain Cole, and Nala crawls up into Captain Cole's lap, and Kara starts feeding the dog bacon.
No, Nala doesn't crawl into her lap. She politely just keeps Nala at the floor level. It's not that she's not it's not that she's not an animal person. It's that she just it's obvious she has a lot on her mind right now.
I just thought I would go ahead and give you an update on how things have been on the ship. I continue to be myself, and thus far I have gotten no one killed, and hopefully I may have saved some lives. But perhaps I see why you didn't exactly promote me directly to lieutenant.
You do make decisions you do make your decisions sometimes rather rashly, but that's not always the worst thing that could be.
I would say I make my decisions confidently, but perhaps not everyone can see my confidence in my own abilities for confidence. Perhaps they see it as bravado or rashness. I'm going to start trying to take a few steps to slow things down. We got a new crewmate recently who he makes all the same decisions I do, but he seems to do it in such a way that doesn't upset people. I'm going to try and see if I can get some help from him.
You mean the android?
Yes, actually. Lieutenant Bryce.
I've heard about the Maddox series androids. They're interesting.
Well, he's security
one day
chief.
I'll get to serve with one.
So hopefully he can teach me about this discipline thing that everyone keeps talking about and that I don't understand.
Well, as I said, interesting. I've never had the opportunity to serve with one, but the specs on the Bryce androids the Bryce synths, let's call them what they are. I think he's a valuable member of your crew. That would be my guess.
I would agree. Anyway, I just wanted to come by and make sure that you were feeling well and tell you that I'm growing to understand what people above me may see about me. I don't think I'll ever be a model Starfleet pilot, but I think there's room for people like me around.
Oh, there is. Of
Anyway,
course there is.
I'm glad to have you back, ma'am, and I'm glad that, you weren't...
Trust me, I'm glad not to be a part of the Borg collective. Things
Well,
could have gone a lot worse. And when she says things could have gone a lot worse, you don't have to be a counselor to tell that when she says things could have gone a lot worse, she means they could have gone a lot worse. And she's sad that so many people lost on her. You can tell she's got a lot weighing on her right now, and yeah, you served with her for a good, month and a half, and got to know her well enough to call her Space Mom, and she's got a lot weighing on her mind right now. And then would probably want to head off to see Tardy off, I would imagine. She would let you finish up breakfast with her and put the soda, put the glass back in the recycler, and she's like, really like that stuff?
Kara laughs.
Orders yourself a tea.
Kara moves to give, Captain Cole a hug. Hey, I'm really glad we got you back. Try to be careful in the future and don't get killed no more, okay?
Do my best.
Okay. We've all got a lot to do, so goodbye, Captain.
Take the same, and she says, you take the same advice, Ensign. See you out there. Lieutenant Tardigrade climbs onto the transporter pad, and all of you are there to see it. Does he have a suitcase? I always picture him with a suitcase, Sunken.
Okay, so I will describe what Lieutenant Tardigrade has. So he's got a suitcase, and it's bulging a little bit. There's a lot packed in there. But the one thing that wasn't able to fit was a full-size batleth. So he's just got that straw on his back, and he's holding the suitcase. But before he goes onto the transporter pad, he reaches under his arm, and there's a stack of papers. And for everyone that's there, he hands them a hand-drawn crayon doodle for that officer.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's just some random scene, but it's got their name on it, and it's from Tardy, and it's of something that had happened with them. So he hands everyone a doodle and hands Marcus 2 doodles. And Marcus nods.
Kara just breaks down crying. Not loudly sobbing, but you can tell there's just tears coming out of her eyes now.
My back.
And at that point, Marcus sort of reaches down and puts a little pip on now Lieutenant Junior Grade Tardigrade's collar. And he just Lieutenant Tardy just looks at it. He just sort of goes along with it. And he doesn't have a personal reaction to it. But then Marcus just sort of salutes and says, Lieutenant Tardigrade, you're going to do both this ship and the Federation proud. And possibly all of sentient life, depending on how things go with you. You have in yourself the capability of doing great things and seeing things from a unique perspective. And you're about to share that with a whole new people. You come back to us in due course. But for now, you go have fun out there.
Hey.
And then Tardigrade says at that point,
I will. I'll make everyone proud, and I promise not to stab too many people, because I know Klingons like to do the stabby. I will stab with moderation, and no one gets hurt, except for the bad people. I will make these decisions, and I will make them well. And then he sort of
scampers up to the transporter platform with his full-size batleth, who no one knows how he got it or where he got it from. He just has a batleth for some reason, and his suitcase, and he nods. Oh, wait. Eli, do you want to say something?
Yes, I was going to give him going away gifts. Am I the only one that got him a gift?
Okay,
You
go
say,
for it.
am I the only one who got him a gift in the transporter officer? Imagine the transporter officer played by an alien, like a random alien of the week, played by Sarah Paulson from American Horror Story. And you say, am I the only one who got him a gift? And she says, I think so.
Oh, well, I walk over to Tardy, I hand him a small box. There, open it.
He very carefully opens it.
It's a box of cards. Sabak cards. Go and teach those Klingons the best gambling game that, that fiction has created.
Hey, sir.
And he gives a full improper salute at that point.
I salute him back.
Transporter chief, or the transport officer, looks over at you and says, on your order, Captain. General Karn's ship is ready to transfer as well.
Engage.
You see her finger slide up the it's just a touchpad screen in front of her. It's just an LCAR screen, but you see her finger slide up, and the bars indicate that you see the transporter beam take Lieutenant Tardigrade, and he disappears from the transporter pad, and at the same time she's using her other hand to pull open another transport, and on the transporter pad next to where Lieutenant Tardigrade is disappearing, I have put the I don't know if Nord has time to put it into his Twitch stream or whatever, but I have put a picture of your new onboard diplomat who transports over from the Klingon ship. He is Gorn. However, he is not this like gigantic hulking beast. He's tall, really, really tall. He's like between 6.5 and 7 feet tall. But his stance, and he's also built super strong in just a lot of ways. That's the best I can say. He's got like those big muscular arms, and he's only got 3 claws. He's got like a thumb digit and 2 claws on each hand, and he's kind of got this almost it's definitely Eli. You can tell right away this guy's got something wrong with his back. He's got back problems. This because of the way that he has a slight hunch to the way that he stands, and he almost has a dinosaur-like appearance rather than like big tall Gorn appearance. And he looks, his eyes just dart back and forth across they just look around the transporter room quickly, and he sees a whole lot of officers because everybody had showed up to say goodbye to Lieutenant Tardigrade, and we can change his name. Absolutely. I'm seeing that in chat somewhere. We can change his name if there's a Foundry character. It's totally cool. We can change his name to Civic.
So there was, I think I know where you're going with this one. So yeah, let's totally make him Civic.
Okay. If you have a look in character info in our game chat area, there's a picture. It's the picture of the Gorn from Enterprise.
Yeah, that totally works.
He looks around.
What's his rank?
We're about to find out, because he snaps his eyes around, looks at all of the officers, settles on Marcus. Actually lingers on Rick Tier for a moment, then settles on Marcus, and he goes, Lieutenant Sizik, reporting for duty, Captain.
And Marcus sort of like has this reaction of like, yeah, this is I don't know if this was what I was expecting or not, but hey, this is fun. And he says, Captain Graves accepts your service into this crew.
And he steps forward off of a transporter pad, and you can see that his, not just his stance has a little bit of a hunch there. His whole like step, the whole way he walks kind of has this dinosaur like gait, and he kind of stretches a little bit upwards, and you can see that he's really tall, and he says, I will be of best use, I think, to you, Captain, looking at diplomatic matters in the areas you intend to explore. I am very skilled at determining what people want.
I see. And Marcus is now sort of having this little wry grin appear. And he says, on a whim, I'd like to test your abilities. I want you to study the desires and culture of the Federation in the 23rd century, and I'd like you to do that within the hour.
Well, that's far more than I was expecting. Can someone show me my quarters so I can get ready?
At once.
And of course, one of the operations people is like, "Wow, this is like an operation. You know, a guy who's in ops, who's probably, you know, he could be any race. He's just one of those, you know, background ops characters. He's probably like 5'8", 5'9". He's not, you know, short, but he's not super tall. But like, he looks up at this Gorn and he's just like, "Wow, this ship." And you hear him as Sizik says, "Any size quarters will do." And he's like, "This ship every day." And he shows Sizik to his quarters. And without much ado, actually, and she kind of makes sure there's not a whole lot of to do about meeting up with the Saratoga. I mean, there is your officers on the bridge coordinating, just coordinating hanging in space for a little bit of time, right? Transfer of crew happens to the Saratoga, and the Saratoga's captain actually, at one point you get, whether you're on the bridge in your ready room or wherever you would like to be on the ship, you get a call that says bridge to Captain Graves. Captain of the Saratoga would like a word.
On screen.
The captain of the Saratoga is an older gentleman, and he looks like a gentleman. He's got one of those like super well trimmed British beards. I don't know what I mean by British beard, except that like it's just got this air. His whole face, and maybe it's the way he's sitting, even though you can only see his face, he just has this kind of air of sophistication about him when he comes on screen, whether it's on the small screen on your desk, on the bridge, and he just says, "Just wanted to check in with you, Captain. I've got all of the transferred. We're ready to bring them. We're ready to bring them where they need to go, back to K7, back to Daystrom. Am I reading this?" And in fact, he requests that that the last part that he wants to say, you know, he wants this message to be private for the last part of the conversation. And he says, "I just want to make sure, Captain, that you know what you're doing, keeping a freshly liberated Borg on board with. You do have one of the better crews for helping them reintegrate, but can be hard. Liberated. I've had an XB on my crew for some time, and it's not always easy.
I know that this is the only crew in Starfleet that can help her.
All I needed to hear, Captain. Good luck out there.
Thank you much, Captain. Safe travels.
And you could tell, because you actually now had to talk to command a couple of times. You can tell that the reason he wanted that last part off the books is because he wasn't recording it. Off the line. That was an I've been a captain in Starfleet for a long time, and I just want to make sure he was like, I want to make sure you understand what you're doing. That's all. And once he seemed convinced by, you saying this might be the only crew in Starfleet that can help her, he was like, that's good enough for me. Because it meant that he could see it, in your face or hear it in your voice. He was like, that's what I needed to hear. And he's happy to be on his way after that. Leaving you, not yet at K7, but eventually I see people in the late morning making their way to their duty shifts. Am I correct for most people?
Yep.
Yeah, making your way back to sick bay. Chaplain Waitley, you actually have a scheduled counseling session later this day. Trying to think of there's a lower decks, lower decks. I say not folks, not referencing the show, but there is a lower decks crew member who wants to talk to you later in the day. They've set up an appointment for after their alpha duty shift. So, basically take an extra break during the day if you get a chance. And as people begin to step back onto the bridge, steps off of the turbo lift with you, Captain, and you didn't even see him there. All of your regular crew, except for Larissa, are back at their stations. Now that means that Bryce is in the security office and Janik is also at the security office, meaning that since Tardigrade is no longer on board, there's some nameless red shirt back there at Tactical right now. Slath got there a little bit before you. He didn't bring a suitcase. He didn't bring anything like that. And when he got onto the bridge, I'm going to say that you were there, Kara. And he made it a point because you had been in the room when he arrived. And when he gets onto the bridge, Slath walks onto the bridge and he says, I don't know what your race is called. What is your name? And actually, I can't handle the my range.
You don't have to do the voice.
I was going to say I can't really get my S's to extend the way that his probably do. And he's probably be like, I do not know what your race is called, but what is your name?
Kara turns and, salutes. Lieutenant, my name is Ensign Kara Girani. My race is the Ibi. We come from Ifar. We're a nation that is neutral between the Federation and the Klingons. We have dealings with both.
I have not studied your kind. I will have to. After I study 23rd century Federation peoples, I've already looked into them some. You think the captain will be happy. And you step onto the bridge, Marcus, I think the captain will be happy. And you were on the turbo lift alone. But Franklin Drake, the older man that you met yesterday, steps out of the turbo lift behind you and he says, guess you weren't going to go to K7. I have trouble sometimes figuring out exactly what potential agents might want to do with their time. I want to hear more, Captain, about what you might be able to do today.
I would love to hear more about what we we're going to be able to do today.
Okay. First, drive. He looks around the bridge, and people who haven't met him yet are kind of like, what? Who is this guy? And why is he dressed like, I always thought like Daniels that's the weirdest uniform in all of Starfleet history. And people look at him and he goes, your crew is going to be impossible to shield from what's about to happen, for you will need most likely all of their skills to transverse time itself and affect a change. Now,
Understood. If I could make a brief message to my crew.
Absolutely.
And Marcus has that impish grin again, and he just taps his communicator and just says, "Crew of the Reliant, this is your captain speaking. We just took down a Borg transwarp conduit. I'm incredibly proud of each and every one of you. Although, Kara, we're going to have words a little bit later. We're going to be doing something, though, that, on the face of it, seems more impossible. But in fact, I believe is going to be quite simple. So, weird things are going to happen. Go along with it. We can talk about it later. My door's going to be open. For the time being, follow orders. And feel free to note anything down in your logs. It's ultimately not our problem. Starfleet's got to fix it. We're going to fix their issues. So for now, let's get to it. He taps his comm badge again. It's like, okay, they're going to be good.
You have a great deal of confidence in your crew, and history tells me why, at the very least. You'll need to be able to achieve speeds that are theoretically impossible. While devices in the newly installed laboratory are capable of opening a transtemporal gateway, you will need a massive amount of energy, which can only be generated in very, very few ways, without me revealing more technology to you than I already have.
Understood. Let's get the ship going into...
If you check your logs, you will find logs of the USS Enterprise, and he proceeds to tell you the star date of when of all of basically Kirk's and Spock's logs of how they took the bird of prey around the sun to travel back in time. And he's like, there is a star that will provide you with needed gravitational pull not far from our current location in the what system is it that they have that you have to go to in the game? I'm trying to remember now. Is it Donatu?
Bepi?
Yeah, Bepi.
Yeah,
Donato factors
Bepi.
into one of them. Yeah.
And he goes, there is a star not far from where we are currently located. It is the Bepi 3, Bepi something. He names the star system that we know is in game. He says that star will produce the gravitational forces necessary to springboard your ship through a temporal portal. If your pilot is skilled enough. And he looks down at Kara. His face does not betray any emotion of smirk or any. He just like, if your pilot is good enough.
Anyone on the bridge can see Kara
Marcus
kind of tense her fingers, and she literally bites her tongue to avoid saying anything.
At this point, Marcus says, hell yeah, she is.
That's good. When you arrive in the past, here is the he gives you the coordinates. He says, as soon as you pass out of the Bepi star system in the past, you will need to proceed to these coordinates. Now, this is where the technology that exists below the decks, between deck 7 and 8, will come in useful. Your current shields will not disguise your presence from even Starfleet or Klingon sensors of that time. And so, what you need to do is modulate your shields using the codes that you will find in the computers that are down there. I've given every okay for them to be accessed by the rest of your ships, by the rest of your ship systems. Your crew should be able to get them. And he looks up. He hasn't yet taken a seat, but Slath looks up from the place that Wheatley normally sits, and he's been one fingering a keypad over there, and he goes, "Captain, we have a great deal of information available to us that is not in standard Federation databases. I don't think that we'll have a problem doing what this man says."
Most excellent.
You can decide. And Drake says, "You can decide after this mission is complete what you want to do about the technology. We want to keep it on board, and I will tell you this: we want to keep it on board. Observe the thing that is yet to happen. Today is not a part of. But you will need to. You will need to hide yourselves from the ships of the era and beam a team capable of restoring warp power to the Reuben James, so that they can escape the area. And if their captain's not capable, you will need to find someone who is capable of getting them out of range of the Klingon attack squadron and keeping yourself hidden from them, as well as we'll call them operatives, even though at that point in their careers they were nothing of the sort. The operatives that were there will deal with the Klingon fleet. One of the many problems that arose that day from their interactions. You must stay focused. Your team must only board the Reuben James and restore its power to allow it to escape. As I said, and as you saw, in all but this timeline that we are in, Reuben James escaped destruction. And if we can save 400 lives today, we should. I will be elsewhere, and I will also be removing, for your comfort, I imagine, when this is all over, and even now, I will be ensuring that none of my operatives remain on your ship.
That is very much appreciated.
You want me to leave? And what was her name, by the way? It was a cool name we came up with 2 weeks ago for the female.
Oh,
it was
God, yeah.
Alvarez or something, or I keep wanting to say A.
It wasn't it like or Nordic?
Yes, it was Nordic. It was
Johansson.
Was it?
Yeah, it was Johansson.
Johansson. It was Bridget Johansson. He goes, "Do you want me to leave Operative Johansson on board with you to assist in engineering if it becomes necessary?"
Very much yes.
All right. I will otherwise be leaving this mission to you. I will tell Johansson to report in directly to your engineer. And he goes and tells Johansson to do, and here's the fun of time travel. He goes and tells Johansson to report in to Rick Tier before he has this conversation with you. So she has already reported down in engineering, Rick, and said, "I'm supposed to just be here if anything goes wrong and you need help, temporally speaking. Is that okay?" And she basically checks in with you, Rick, and is like, "Let me help." Do you have a problem with her being in engineering with you?
He just basically nods at her. Your assistance with the clandestine equipment would be greatly appreciated. you're the only one on the ship that has experience, and it would
It's
be
great.
unwise to
I'll
avoid
make
that.
sure that our shields. She says, "Great. I'll make sure that our shields stay calibrated so that no one from the past even knows we're there." Drake gives you a look on the bridge, Captain. Just a nod and a. You can see there's a little bit of. It looks like something that there's not a lot of left in him. He looks. His expression makes you think of. An old soldier who never got to stop seeing war. It makes you feel like he has never known a time in his life since he was probably a young man where peace and calm were something he could experience. He gives you that little nod and he steps back into the turbo lift, and you don't see the indicator indicating that the turbo lift goes anywhere, but you know that the next time it opens he won't be there.
So that leaves them on the bridge with a job to do.
Yeah, that leaves
And Marcus said that.
you, Kara, Slath,
Sizik.
Kendra, Quentin, not sure if Waitley would have come to the bridge. I know Eli would be down in.
Waitley is on the bridge. I'm
Okay.
assuming all the characters that I have put there at the bottom are who are.
Okay, see, I'm not even looking. I'm just over here in.
I've got Graves,
Discord.
Kendra, Kara, Oakley, Quentin, Rick, Eli.
I like that. You added a picture for Sizik so everybody can know what I mean when I say he looks like a dinosaur.
Yep.
Yeah, and following his departure from the bridge, you have most of your crew there on the bridge and ready to go. Kara, Moon sends you all of the figures that have been checked and double checked, and yeah.
Kara's just kind of muttering to herself. Is it weird that with all this time travel stuff I'm about to do, I'm still more stoked about flying a Constitution?
Moon says, I'll fight you for that Constitution." And he smiles like it's definitely a just kidding kind of moment. And you can see that your thanks to Moon, basically everything you need to worry about piloting wise has he did all the pre-flight checks for you.
As is, regulation, Kara double checks him, but it's more of a what's the word I'm looking for here? More of just, it's just what she does. She's not expecting to find errors.
Right, there are none. I actually could make a roll for him. Let me do that. If I can remember how rolls work in this game. 2d 20 13 3. Hey, he got a success. There are no errors.
And that success jump-started my brain. She checked just as a formality.
Which totally makes sense. It's all up to what you guys want to do now. Only NPC on the bridge is Slath. In Med Bay, there is Dr. 3 is down there with you, O'Connor. Ged is not there. He stayed up all night and pulled a double.
Actually, real quick, Kara turns over her shoulder and looks at Lieutenant Sizik. Sir, it may be best to tell you this now. There's a lot of weird stuff that goes on this ship. I hope you have a high tolerance for weird, sir.
I've been here less than 3 hours and we're traveling through time.
Yeah,
and he just kind of shrugs like, all right then, we're traveling through time. I've been here less than 3 hours and we're traveling through time.
Kara looks over at him, and don't forget that yesterday we salvaged a partially assimilated ship and then destroyed a Borg Unimatrix.
And we also initiated a personnel transfer with a sentient tardigrade.
And he says, you realize Defense Force considers all of you enemies, and if we come upon a Defense Force ship, they're not going to not fire on you just because I'm here.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Good.
So, we have our directives, we have the technology, and we have the capacity to go back in time. So let us proceed with this mission so we can go back to being explorers.
Does anybody remember when we used all right, so Kara, next big role of the game comes down to your ability to pilot a ship. Baz, would this be a control or a daring attribute?
Well, which would be the more primary thing? Would it be more precise control, or would it be her more like gritting through the risks and dealing with
More
the
precise control. So we're gonna go with control con, which is 11 and 5, which is 16 for you. You have a focus in flight and piloting, which means your critical number is 5 and below. Just for fun, I'm going to throw 2 threat at you and make your
that's what that is.
fun.
That should throw that down to 17.
That should actually it should draw it down to 18.
17 because I have augmented, so my failure range is already a little bigger.
Oh, I love it.
You won't like the fact that it gives me an automatic success.
I don't mind. I don't mind at all. But it takes you down to a 17. You could whatever they call it when you fumble in this game. What do they call that? You know, I'll never remember all these terms. Yeah, we do have a point of momentum. You guys do have one if you want to use it. But you are right, you do have an automatic success here in piloting. Oh my goodness.
Boom.
Boom, 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 boom. Momentum.
Wait a second here. Looks like it did that wrong. It looks like I still would have 2 successes, but it looks like it did definitely do that wrong. The target should have come first in the...
You switched them around. It's no big deal. You did not get a complication and you did not get a critical, but you did get 2 successes, which builds up a point of momentum because you had 1 automatic, bringing you guys currently to 2 momentum and me at 8 threat. You, following the captain's orders, do something that you had only in piloting classes you had heard about as more theoretical, because it's really only happened, once or twice in the history of Starfleet attempting bad ideas.
While doing this, Kara is busy talking towards the screen, but it's kind of addressed towards the captain. So if I tried this with a shuttle on a weekend pass, I'd probably get executed or something, wouldn't I?
Sizik is... So, you know how your seat is to the left of the captain's chair, Waitley? Imagine how that kind of, in the Next Generation, how the captain's cluster set and how, like, there's an area, basically there's an area with a bowl like that's slightly raised up next to you, and he is standing right next to and behind you, looking at the data that you guys have access to. And he goes, and when you say, so doing this in a shuttle on a weekend pass would probably be a bad idea, he goes, you get the velocity, but not the gate. And at that moment, the Klingon over at Ops says, we're going to have to activate whatever it is sends us into the past, Captain. We are approaching velocity in 10. And you see him call it up on his board. 7, 5, 4, 3, 2, one. An order, or do you just let him do it?
Marcus just points at the screen in time, fully expecting him to activate it, and he doesn't have a good, like, he waits for it, he waits for that moment, and he just lingers for a second, and he says nothing because he can't come up with a good pun at that moment.
That's great. So he's just like, and goes, jumping. And he activates that, everything in your point of view, everything in your, for everyone on the ship, no matter where you are, whether you're down in the engineering deck, whether you're in the sick bay, wherever you are, everyone sees a prism of light. Everything just seems to explode in a prism of light all around you. Everyone doesn't it do any of you have a race that you believe is extraordinarily sturdy? Like, do you believe that your character, in whatever way, is harder to affect with, like, physical damage, or what have you?
Marcus has the Resolute trait that gives him an increase of maximum stress.
Eli does too.
Rick probably might be, in terms of mental fortitude, anyway.
Okay. So what happens is Kara begins her approach, and the Reliant gets pulled right into the gravity well of the Bepi star system star. And Kara, you managed to get yourself just outside of that, call it an event horizon, even though it's not a black hole. But there's a point where if you were not going the speed that you are going, you would just get sucked right into the star. And instead, you come swinging around using the gravity as kind of a catapult, essentially. And whatever the Klingon at operations does opens what all of you can only say is, for a moment, it looks like there's this big glowing ring next to the star. And say you move through that, and that's when all of this explosion of color happens. And sorry about the big ring, I had to. There's this big explosion of color, and what seems like a moment later, Graves, you feel you're definitely one of the first people awake, but you feel a really weird three-fingered hand on your shoulder, and a voice that's deep and reptilian, being like, "Captain Graves, are you all right?"
Yeah. What's the status of the ship?
Checking now, and everyone else is beginning to do that kind of wake up scene that we all saw in Star Trek IV, where, like, you just traveled through time, and wow, everybody's going to react to it differently.
Kara burps and holds her stomach, doubling over slightly. I think my guts just tried to jump in a direction that didn't exist.
The Klingon over at Ops retakes his seat. He was laying on the floor. He checks systems and he goes, answer to your question is the ship appears to be fine, Captain. I feel like my insides want to come outside. And he almost loses it right there, but he manages to keep his composure enough. Oakley, you could be glitching out a bit. That's one possibility. Or you could be one of two people on board the ship who were completely unaffected by the time travel. You and Bryce don't have to be affected by the time travel at all. Or robotic in nature. You have no, basically have no physical, you have no physical human meat parts that are going to be affected by this the same way that all the rest of the crew was. So it's very possible that Oakley is just fine. Just putting that out there. It's totally up to you. If you want to be a little like sparky and glitchy, that's fine too. But just putting it out there, you could totally be just fine.
Rick's probably coughing up a lung right now.
You are. You feel really bad down in sickbay, and what was the girl's name? Bridget. What was her last name again? Johansson. Bridget Johansson. Eventually, as she's got herself together, she walks over and says, "Chief, you're probably still a little weak stomached from the gas. You're reptilian, right?"
He just sort of like mutters that, just sort of nods while still coughing.
Nods, and she goes, "Go in the other room." And she's like, she knows that you are about to lose it. Like, she gets that, you may have some lingering like nausea and not feeling so well from the gas, and she can tell you are about to like just lose your lunch. And all of you have that moment of, whoa. We just traveled through time and we're getting our bearings back. And
go ahead.
I was about to say, for Kara, based on the location of the stars and everything you can see around you and what you can read and see on your sensors, the Klingon looks over at you and, he basically has like one of those, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" looks, and you can see that you have traveled to the year 20. What year is it that this mission happens in game? 2360 something.
It would be 22 for the 23rd century.
Yeah, it would be 2267. 2267.
Captain, according to sensors and navigational logs, we have arrived in the year 2267. She, rights the ship and makes sure that everything is fine. I didn't see this shit on the recruiting posters.
That's probably for a fact. And at this point, Marcus replicates himself a coffee from a little dispenser in the side of his table, or his side of his command chair.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and he's kind of like, he was kind of ready for this because he understood temporal theory. It's like, there's some ways this could kind of go bad physically.
And one of them is we're all going to be sick for a good 15-20 minutes after.
Yeah, so he's already he was bracing himself, and he's like, this is worse than I thought it was going to be. So at this point he says, are shields properly configured?
Klingon looks like he's having a lot of trouble. He's really not just really not feeling well as Sisik walks over and says, "I understand, traitor. Your stomach is weak." And looks, he puts his hand on the Klingon's shoulder and says, "I understand, traitor. Your stomach is weak. Shields are configured properly, Captain."
Kara literally says, "Oh God, we're about to witness a murder."
Klingon looks up at him and says, "I can handle my own board, thank you, Orn." And that's you can tell immediately, Waitley, that there is shockingly only the briefest moment of contention between them. When the Klingon says, "I can handle my own board, Gorn," the moment of contention has passed, and you feel like Klingon respects the Gorn for the choice that he made, and the Gorn respects the Klingon for the choice that he made. That's the most you can get out of them is that they're not angrier, right?
So I just want to have a quick thing. So when we come through and all that's going on, Waitley, of course, since Sisik has taken Waitley's typical station, Waitley wouldn't be at that chair anyway, because for this mission he'd be at that secondary science console off to the side of the bridge that he takes in the heat of the moment when it's like he needs the whole computer in front of him. He doesn't want to have that little, friggin' armchair pad that's right there. He wants the whole thing. So he's there. Every once in a while, he glances over at Sizik with like just the briefest glimpse of, I don't know if it's jealousy or you're in my seat kind of thing. But he's there in that seat, and they go through all that. And when they come out on the other end, Whately appears normal. Like if anybody notices, like that instant, that first instance where like everybody's like, "Oh God, that was intense." Whately seems fine, and he looks up, and he goes to say something. It sounds something like this: "We appear to be in the 23rd century, Captain." Oh. And he literally just blacks out, slumps over, and starts bleeding from the nose.
It's like, oh, this is bad. So, with some montage of your crew getting back to getting back to rights over the next 15, 20 minutes. The Klingon at Ops, who we'll name him eventually. He turns around and he says, "Captain, I've got the location of Rosanna Station. Just had to account for 200 plus years of stellar drift, and we're looking at a clear path to the station, unless there are cloaked ships out there."
Wait, 200 years of spatial drift? I thought that station had station keeping drive. Freaking cost-cutting Ferengis.
So there could be cloak ships, though.
Could be, and we do know that this era's defense force is going to send an entire, or at least one general of the defense is going to bring a small fleet of ships there.
And as that fleet is approaching, they may have some supplemental support, or there may be other interested parties. Is there any path that is A, clear, but also B, keeps us off scanners more so?
He looks at his board and he runs some figures. He sends some figures over to Kara, who can make a reason con check, which is a 16. Ship's flight and piloting applies. 5 is your critical range, 5 and below. 16 is your target number. I'm not going to throw any threat at this particular one. 2d0.
Again.
Try typing it again, Kara.
There we go. 2 successes. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Thanks to having good teammates, which is one of those wonderful Star Trek things. Thanks to having good teammates, you know exactly how to get there. You could engage warp right now and not run into anything along the way.
Woot.
So that's where you're at.
So we proceed, or Marcus gives the order.
Kara looks over and Moon, "You're in charge. I gotta go get ready for the away mission."
He steps on and takes the seat, looks at you, Captain, and engages. Warp drive activates, and the Reliant does that cool warp out effect that we all have grown to know and love. And in what feels like no time at all, because warp always feels like no time at all, the Reliant shoots out of warp space with a very obvious, what we would see as people viewing this, we would see it as a very obvious shield modulation difference as the Reliant comes into the system, where you can see the old Drozana station hanging there with the asteroids and the kind of the blue what is the energy that the Davidians used?
Triolic
is
waves.
yeah, triolic waves, that you can see the blue triolic waves just cascading off of this giant asteroid that is beginning its long kind of course through the system. And off ahead of you, you can see the back end of a Constitution class starship as your sensors show it to be a 2409, a 25th century rebuilt, or not rebuilt, or
Refit.
a 25th century refit not Constitution, Miranda class. So a lot like the Reliant, but not the Reliant. The Reliant is cooler, but it looks like a bird of prey. It looks like a 23rd century bird of prey, just weapons that are 25th century weapons tear into one of the warp nacelles of the Reuben James, and you begin to hear a distress call come from the Reuben James, and you see the bird of prey quickly slide into a docking ring, into a docking area on Drozana Station. And yes, post, this is the player character that is doing it.
I do want to throw one quick thing in here. When Marcus recognizes what ship that is, because he'll have picked up that there was another captain at this point, he's just like, "Oh my god, I should have known it was these guys." Yep. And he is just like, oh god, this is, of course we're being called in to clean this up. Of course we're being cleaned up, because Admiral Quinn's pet protege is back in time blowing everything up.
And we have reached almost 10, which is our stopping point, and we're really, really close to the end. So this, when we do pick up again in 2 weeks, it won't be very long, at least on this point. But the bird of prey that to be a 25th century refit Miranda class kind of pulls into a docking position beneath Drozana Station, leaving the Reuben James just hanging there in space with green trails of plasma coming, sparking off into space around it. There's a distress beacon coming off of the Reuben James, and at that moment, the Klingon at Ops goes, "Just like we expected, Captain. Incoming Klingon fleet. We have 10, maybe 15 minutes."
Actually, as a side note to Q, I mean, we could stop at our scheduled time, or it could go a little bit longer. I'm fine with that.
Awesome. So to come back up, the crew of the Reliant has just arrived in the system. It's not the Sherman system, that's K7. I don't know what the name of the system where it might just be the Drozana system, because it's really just the Drozana system. But the Reliant had come into the Drozana system. You see the heavily disguised bird of prey that is actually Reliant class, the player character in the game uses to, you see them disable the Reuben James, the Constitution class that had moved to investigate their arrival, and then moved to a point where it looks like they've probably they've taken up a spot of station keeping just under the station. And once all of that happens, your ops officer turned to report, Captain, it's exactly like we were expecting. Klingon fleet incoming, and we got 10, maybe 15 minutes.
Did the other ship hit Drazana Station at all? And Marcus is just like, he's face palmed right now.
And he says, no, sir, no weapon hits on Drozana, but they are broadcasting a distress call at the moment.
Understood. I mean, that officer, I can't believe they gave him a ship. He just hit fire at will at the Academy in every simulation. Anyway, we need to get on board the Reuben James. We need to get that out of here. So top priority, we need to beam over there. I'd recommend 2 crews, 1 in engineering, 1 on the bridge, just to secure our 2 pathways, with a 3rd crew standing by just in case we need to do any response. So let's get the ship over there within beaming range and take care of this.
Turbo lift doors open and Bryce steps onto the bridge, and he is wearing a 23rd century red tunic. He looks like Bryce in, Captain Kirk era, in the Captain Kirk era uniform, and he walks in right at the tail end of you saying, we're going to send 2 teams, engineering and the bridge. And he says, Captain, if I could suggest, the teams into turbo lifts outside of those areas or in hallways outside of those areas. If these people just see officers beaming in, they're going to want answers.
Understood. And in case that happens, just tell them you're from Drozana. So
understood.
Do we have any questions before we get going? Understood then. All right, let's get this going.
Hey, stepping out of med bay at this point in time and heading toward the and let me call up Eli's amazing character sheet here. I love character sheets. They're just all. Eli, you need to make we're going to call it control medicine check, which is 15 for you. It's not trauma, prosthetics, cybernetics, aesthetics. No, none of your focuses apply. So it's just 15 is your target number. Your critical range is still at a 1. I am going to throw 3 points of threat at you to lower that number to a 17 as your complication range.
Well, damn. I just want to note that since I'm already in like the blue TOS uniform while I'm doing surgery, I'm ready. And
that's awesome. That's great. I know that like these surgeries like would have happened like right on the way there. So it's time to see how well the doctor did at helping Rick Tier and Am I in the wrong?
Good job, doctor.
Am I in the wrong channel? I don't see anything in game time chat.
Game time chat? No, we just got a roll from Majel from that.
Oh, there it is. Critical range. Did you score 1 success and 1 complication? That's wonderful.
Eli, what have you done to me?
No, it was
No,
Rick Tier.
what have you done to Rick?
Hey, just gonna put it out there. We do have 2 momentum. Hint,
I want this complication. I want this complication.
I do too, to be honest.
Well, I'm not used to working on lizards, so it's probably Rick Tier I screwed up on.
I think it'd be up to Q what happens if you screw it up.
You know what? There was a success and there was a complication, and you'll find out what that means in just a few minutes as the teams beam over to the Reuben James. There is 1 team going to engineering and 1 team going to the bridge. Now, people that we know are going are the chaplain, Para, Rick Tier and Bryce and Eli. That's 5. So which people go where?
I think Kara to the bridge would be the obvious one. Rick to engineering. Supporting Rick and Bryce would be a good pairing down there. And I would say Waitley at the bridge would be good. And then we've got Nick, the last one.
Yeah, just in case there is my thinking is there may be injured people over there.
Yeah, so let's put him.
I would say engineering. There's more that could go wrong there rather than just on the bridge where there's just consoles.
Yeah, exploding consoles didn't really start up until TNG era. So.
There's also command staff.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. That's what I'm weighing. Like, what would be our immediate priority? It would probably be. I think it actually would be command staff.
We could send Ged as well.
Oh, yeah, that'd be a good one. Each team gets a medic.
Sure. Ged shows up to the transporter room, yawning and looking at Eli. And when he steps onto the transporter pad with like the other team, he looks over to Eli and he's like, "You owe me like 7 shifts, man."
And I will gladly take them. I'm going to
get the transporter because you realize that Ged was up all night last night.
Well, Dr. 3 wasn't going to fit in over there. And
Exactly.
we suddenly realized we needed one.
The transporter beams take people, and where is Eli and where is Ged? Who goes to the bridge is the only question.
I'm going to the... Well,
okay,
I want to, but it's up to Graves, obviously.
I'd put Eli on the bridge.
Okay, so we're going to start with engineering. Just outside of engineering, the silvery beams of your transport appear in the hallways. And Rick, you look a whole lot more like your Saurian ancestors right now than and there's a bit more. You would hesitate to call it slime, but it's slime. There's a bit more like slimy texture to your skin with what the doctor has done to help you look like you could fit in here. And the door to engineering, as Bryce takes a step forward, does not want to open, and he just grabs it and just strength of data pulling on a door that doesn't want to open. He just kind of pulls it and yanks it to the open position, and Ged moves in, and this is the first time you've seen Ged on a away team. He is kind of nimble for a Tellarite. The only problem is his legs are short, and they don't agree with him being nimble, as it were. So he's just a little bit quick, but he's kind of got this like weird, like what would be the right word? He's like the really short-legged, or like I'm trying to think, like a dachshund or something. Like, have you ever seen how their legs just move like 1,000 miles a minute? That's what Ged looks like walking into this engineering deck. He looks around, and you can see that he's very quickly prioritizing wounded people, and there are a lot of them. Looks like the whole engineering staff just is injured and lying about near their stations and on the floor. What do you do, Rick Tier?
I just go to work. So we've sort of been preparing for this. Me and Oakley have been going over schematics, going over seeing what methods we can do to jumpstart the engines, and I just go start with the basic diagnostics and see where to go from there.
Basic diagnostics and see where to go from there. You may make a reason engineering check. It's a 16 with EPS power systems applying. 5 is your critical range. I'm going to spend 1 threat to bring your complication range to 19 and 20.
Well, I might as well take a dive for a roll. Momentum
Okay.
allows me to re-roll as well, because cautious, just in case any complications. And I'm re-rolling
man.
that complication.
Wow.
Now this would be a good reroll, maybe.
There's nothing wrong with it.
I mean, yeah, there's
Agree.
complication, but we got 3 successes too, so
Yeah, it's
I'm just gonna re-roll the 19. That's all I'm gonna. That's all I can do with cautious, which is what I'm.
okay. Boom. You're gonna re-roll the 19. Go ahead and do it.
momentum stays at 2 for them.
No, momentum is at 1. Baz did use 1 to get a die.
Oh no!
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
Wow. I guess the dice wanted that 19. I like that you re-rolled and it came right back to the 19. So, Bryce doesn't know engineering. Bryce is helping move people that are injured and helping. He's basically helping Ged do trauma. Like what can you do? And as he's moving between 2 people, Bryce is like, "What can I do to help, Doctor?" And he looks like he really wants to help. And Get is like, "Get out of the damn way!" And he just moves right past where Bryce was, like not even stopping. Get is just at work. He's like, "I am a doctor, doctoring things." Let's make a roll for Get. Someone roll 2d20. Your target number is 15. Your critical range is 5 and below. Someone roll that for me on the dice roller there. See how well Ged does doctoring these people.
What were the 2 numbers?
He has a target number of 15 and a critical range of 5 and below. 1 success.
Wrong way again.
Wrong way again. So actually,
Yeah, I got. It's still 1 success, so it's that 15.
It's still 1 success.
15.
Basically, it's not like he's improving things, but he is stabilizing people, which is what you need to have happen down there, Rick. And you check out the power systems while the 2 of them are doing that. And it's not that whoever fired on the Reuben James was trying to do this kind of, because it's impossible. It would have been completely impossible for them to have predicted that there would be something that's like normal in warp engines is little plasma spikes here and there. They're like a little tiny burp once in a while in the EPS flow conjugate. By the 25th century, not even a problem. Like you don't even really see them. Back here in the 23rd century, that still happens sometimes. And the shots that disabled the Reuben James, it just as one of those kind of plasma spikes was happening, and it caused a feedback that kind of blew a hole in the engine. The only way this ship is going to get out of here is if somebody takes a raw dilithium, like somebody's got to take a raw dilithium canister into the main engine and drop off and replace the dilithium in order to get this ship moving.
Well, I guess
you know for a fact that you would need protective gear. Ed would need protective gear.
What about rice?
But we have someone who doesn't need it.
So
Meanwhile, up on the bridge. Go ahead, Baz.
Do we have dilithium with us?
What's that?
Do we have dilithium with us, or will that just be...
No, they have. There is enough dilithium on the ship, basically assigned for secondary engines, secondary engine power. That whoever goes into the engine core is going to have to take this like heavy key. It's going to be like ridiculously heavy too. Basically, he's got to Spock this.
The Spock scene from Wrath of Khan.
Yes, he has to do the Spock scene from the Wrath of Khan in order to get the Reuben James moving again.
Except considerably less fatal.
Considerably less fatal. Meanwhile, up on the bridge, the three of you break onto the bridge. Eli and Kara and Waitley. You not really break onto the bridge, but you pull open a kind of stuck little turbo lift side alcove door and exit onto the bridge. And it is the classic 1960s bridge. That beautiful, wonderful bridge. Sorry, I have a real thing for the 1960s Enterprise. I really love it. And that's the bridge you guys step onto. There is a man in a yellow shirt with more stripes on his sleeves than anybody else on the bridge, who is who is laying on the ground on the floor next to the commander's chair. There is there is a human woman. She looks Indian by descent. By Indian, I mean like Indian. Looks Indian by descent, and her head is laying down on the console, and you can see she's at the pilot seat, and she's wounded. Her head is bloody. She's obviously was thrown forward into the console. At what would have been Chekhov's seat, there is a Cation who is kind of half conscious, poking at buttons on his console. You know, those wonderful like actual buttons like you would see Sulu press and things like that, right? He's pressing and he's not even looking at what he's doing. He's obviously in shock. There is a person at the engineering console who is unconscious. There is at the science console, had no idea, but there is an alien at the science console, and he is not unconscious, and he is blinking his eyes a lot. He is a Denobulan, as he sees as you enter the bridge, the three of you, and he says, help the captain. I scanned a Klingon fleet.
Kara immediately moves over to the engineering thing, coughing slightly. Let's see if we can get the smoke out of here. Do we have a secondary ventilation system? Whether or not anybody answers that question, she begins looking for a way to ventilate the air on the bridge.
You find a control at the engineering station that can do that quite easily. You ventilate the air and recirculate the air on the bridge. Eli, what would you like to do?
I'm going to go over to the captain and scan him as well as the Cation. Or should I do one at a time?
You should do one at a time. Who is going to be your first I scan them?
I would almost recommend the con officer first. She looks like she might be the most badly hurt, and we'll have to move her.
Con officer first. Because we need to get out of here.
Okay, the con officer, as you're going to need to roll a reason medicine check, which is 14 for you, and you are sealed with trauma surgery. So this is not surgery, but this is trauma situation. And so your target number is 14, your critical range is 4 and below.
All right. Let's hit it.
2 successes. She has a really bad cut on her head. That's it.
What species did you say she was?
She's human.
Okay.
She's human. She's got a really bad cut on her head, and it's bleeding because of where it is. It's like that. She's probably cut something to the effect of an artery, not a main artery. It just means that it's going to look a lot worse than it really is. Probably the worst thing she's going to come out of this with is a concussion. You could wake her up now if you wanted to.
I'm going to tear off a sleeve off of her uniform and use it to, put pressure on her head so the bleeding stops and try to wake her up.
Okay. You may make an. What is it for using medicine on somebody to wake them up, Baz? Would you say that's a control medicine?
I would go either control or insight, maybe.
Okay, we're going to go with control medicine. That's a 15, and there's no surgery involved, so it's just a 15. 15 is your target number. Got a success.
20.
This could be really amusing, this complication.
Wake her up, and when you wake her up, and she's looking right at your mistake. And you realize your mistake right as she notices it. And so maybe have a nose ridge or like a forehead thing going on, don't they? Like
Yeah, they do.
For it, yeah. You realize it at the same. You wake her up, and you have her facing Kara. And you realize that you realize that the complication from earlier is that you didn't use enough of the injected prosthetic for her forehead to even it out, so her head looks really weirdly lumpy. And maybe it's because of where she goes, "Who are you?" Sits back and is very like, Who are you?"
I'm going to try to act my way out of this.
Really scared.
She was injured in the attack. Are you judging against the injured?
Eli O'Connor, man of suave sophistication.
She looks scared, but in some way a little bit trusting of the fact that you're wearing Starfleet, medical colors. She is definitely call her like on the reaction track. You just got a negative on her. Like she's starting at, "I'm scared of you. What are you doing? Who are you?" That's where it's starting. You got to talk your way out of that.
All right, give me a second.
And Waitley, you can sense that as soon as this woman wakes up. She is scared. She thinks that Kara is some kind of a weird alien, and because she's probably got a concussion, she's probably in shock. She right now thinks that you guys are like body snatchers.
Waitley is going to attempt to put her to a long sleep and wipe her memory of the incident.
Okay, wait 1 second until Eli's ready to go here. Eli!
Yes.
Are you there? Okay,
Yep.
What do you want to do?
Calm down, will you? We're with Starfleet Medical. You have concussion. I highly recommend you go down to sickbay, get that concussion checked out. We have our con officer here. I'm going to let her respond.
She's like, "What? Sickbay? The lifts aren't even working. And she looks around the bridge. She's like, something hit us hard.
Klingons. Just step to the side. Let our backup con officer take this. You need to get some rest.
And steps away from her chair, sits down on the steps right next to where, sits down on that, like, it's not really a step, it's like it leads up to the rear area of the bridge behind the captain there. And she sits down there, and Whately's mind wonkiness takes over, and she kind of leans against the post and lets herself just sleep. Eli, who do you want to check next?
Okay, now I'm gonna check the Cation at a you said it was Chekhov's seat.
Yep.
All right, as I'm doing that, I'm gonna look at Whately
14
like
again. 4 is your 14. 4 is your critical range.
all right, as I'm doing this, I'm looking at Whately and saying, it's not good to sleep with a concussion.
Wait, shrug.
Oh,
You know what isn't good?
3 successes. You check the Cation. The Cation is so in shock that he doesn't even know that a medical officer is scanning him. He is pressing buttons, and Whately, you can tell that he is pressing buttons because that's what you do. You press buttons. He is so far in shock. He's going to be no use to anyone.
Whately is going to plant a suggestion in his mind that he should go seek out medical attention. An urgent message in his brain says, "Go to sickbay, go to sickbay, go to sickbay."
He starts moving away, and it looks like he because of the shock and everything else, he practically sits right down on opposite to where the other where the woman is now sleeping. He's weak and hurt and in shock, and he'll go to sick bay when he feels up to it. You're pretty sure of that. And Eli, now comes the worst thing that you have to discover, and hopefully not fail, rather, is what I mean. Hopefully you don't fail deciding what's wrong with the captain, or deciding what's wrong with the Commodore, right? Like, how much would that suck? Failing that role. By the way, I'm going to throw 3 threat at you, so 17 bucks.
I saw that coming.
Whately is going to assist since he is also a trained medical professional.
I am, yes, and because of that, I'm going to give you a one-time bonus because of that. You actually, I still had to spend the threat, but instead of a 17, it's an 18. Because of your special, I have mind with Borg nanites in it now. You are able to assist and basically buy back against my threat for this one time. I don't know if that's even a thing, but I like it, so we're doing it.
Your cue. You get to make the rules.
So you get to roll 1 assist, and Doctor, you get to roll 2 dice. 14 is your total. 5 is your critical range, and 18 and above is your complication range.
What's my target number for the assist?
Target number for the assist.
The way he was doing it, I think it's just automatic. You just bought back a point of threat, right?
Yeah, you automatic. You buy back.
Oh, so
you buy off.
All right,
and that's even better than giving him a die on the roll. As you can buy a die on the roll, you can't buy disappearing one of my threat for your coolness.
No one in their sane mind would ever say Whately is cool, except under pressure, but that's beside the point.
As I'm starting to check the captain, I motion for Kara to get into the con.
Kara checks to make sure that there's nothing else she can do at the engineering panel, and then moves to the con.
There's nothing else to do with the engineering panel.
All right, let's roll. Hot damn.
Gotta wait until they got power back online, but I can go ahead and set us a course.
So the captain is bad off. Everything you thought might be wrong with the woman who was sitting at the con, from the look of her having a head wound and stuff, that's what the captain has. The captain has a head wound. The captain was flung out of his chair, probably because the head wound is a blunt force impact. It looks like where his head hit the floor. He is not going to be getting up again for a while. He needs some serious medical attention. The people of this time probably can provide that if you can get him out of here. Back on board the Reliant, your Klingon ops officer turns around and says, Captain, 3 minutes till the Klingon fleet arrives.
Broadcast that or transmit that as covertly as possible to the away team. Let them know they need to get moving now.
He looks back at the tactical station, and the tactical officer. If you look at what he does, Marcus, you are knowledgeable enough to know like what his station can do and like what he is doing when he does stuff at his station. And you see that he encodes a signal so it will only hit comm badges of your officers, and it will be a subtle beep. And so all of you on board the Reuben James get a beep, and you get a report. It says, "Way team, this is Reliant. You have 3 minutes remaining, less." And so all of you hear that down in the engine room. Rick, you know what has to happen. Ged is dealing with the people as best as he can. And Bryce is helping him. It's not like Bryce is being completely useless. He is helping Ged. But he looks over and he goes, Rick, is there anything that I can do?
Rick just sort of grunts at the console. We're going to have to completely replace the dilithium crystals. Get in there, change it out. It is going to be a highly radioactive environment. You would be the quickest to do it.
Where is it?
Rick will lead him over to...
He looks at the display you're looking at.
Rick will point out the issues with the dilithium, bring up whatever schematics of where the slide needs to be done, what needs to be done. Shows him that. Finds one of those containers to so this is what you'll be dealing with, and just quickly goes over the process with him.
He looks over at the doctor and he says, Doctor, are they stable? Ed nods and he goes, yeah. Bryce looks at you and he says, dump the current dilithium matrix and get yourselves out of here. And he starts walking back toward the door through which he will have to close that door, and normally you would have on but yeah, he's going to walk right into the main end door. You know that. It's the only choice you've got. And as he gets to that door, he taps his comm badge and he says, Kara, guys ready on the bridge?
This is Kara. We've got the course plotted in. I'm going to take us about 3 light years out. That should keep us pretty safe.
He looks back at you, Rick. What do you do?
Sorry, I was slightly distracted.
Yeah. He looks back at you as he's about to enter the warp core, and he's ready for you. You have to eject the current dilithium matrix, so he has a place to put the new one.
Okay, so I will start the process and ready to get out of engineering as soon as I do so.
Okay, you start the process. Let's get you a reason engineering check, which for you is a 16, and this is an EPS power system problem, so your critical range is 5, and I'm going to use my last threat of the night. to make your terrible things range into a 19 or 20.
Okay, I'm gonna grab another dice for momentum.
Guys are now down to 1 momentum.
16. What's the threat range again?
Threat range is 19 and 20.
Okay. 4 successes.
What? What madness is this?
Oh, shit.
Fine.
He makes the ship go fast.
Fine. Start the process, and you and Ged back out into the hallway, and you can see main engineering for a brief moment gets flooded with radiation as he moves through the door and locks the other door behind him. And it's not flooded with radiation, but you can tell by your own tricorder the radiation level inside of the warp core is outrageous. I have no way to say it besides it's outrageous. And he walks into the warp core. Nothing about it, like his skin doesn't like melt off or anything weird. He's just an android. And he does exactly what he needs to do. And he walks over and he takes the new dilithium matrix and he does the whole Spock thing of now here's the thing. Spock had to put on those gloves because it's so hot, because it's so radioactive. He just does it barehanded and drops the new dilithium matrix in and he goes, "Bridge, go." And his signal breaks up a little bit, and he says, "Bridge, go!"
That's on Kara.
Kara says, "All right, hold on to your butts," and engages the warp drive.
Engage the warp drive, and you noticed for sure that there was, until he said, "Oh," there was no warp drive. We weren't going to have warp. It wasn't going to happen. And you engage the warp drive on a Constitution-class starship, and you get to feel yourself zoom out of the Drozana system on a Constitution-class ship. Moon looks on the bridge of the Reliant. Moon looks at you, Graves, and says, "We follow."
Thank God that cells help.
You can see a Klingon fleet coming into the system. He's like, "We follow, Captain."
And he says, "Aye."
Reliant also warps out of the system, leaving the Klingon fleet to descend on Drozana just as the player leaves Drozana after making that stupid drink, and they engage in that battle that destroys the comet and all of that stuff. Whereas you, outside of just more or less just outside of the Drozana system, you realize that literally the best option you have right now is waking up the con officer and leaving her in charge of the ship. It's probably your best option. She seems to be the most capable remaining officer on the bridge aside from the Denobulant Sciences.
As soon as the ship actually exits warp drive, Kara immediately moves and heads over to the turbo lift since her disguise is not holding up terribly well.
Right. So are you going to go ahead and wake her up so that, there's someone awake on that bridge before you leave?
Waitley.
Or do you just want to leave the Denobulant in charge?
Waitley encourages her to wake up, giving her he's gonna go full Men in Black, the red light, that whole thing, and basically plant a very.
You were never here.
Yeah, exactly.
You were never here. So you are transported off of the Reuben James in short order, more or less, all of you, having done the job of prioritizing trauma, and providing minor medical assistance, and when you're beamed off, 4 of you or 5 of you are beamed onto one transporter pad, and you see a fifth. Would it be a 5th level? A 5th? A force field is put up over the other side of the transporter platform, and Bryce appears on that transporter platform, and it's not like he's glowing like a star or anything, but
he just has a healthy green glow to him.
Just a touch of Cherenkov radiation.
He has a healthy radioactive glow, and he says, "Well, I would like to not ever have to do that one again."
Kara looks over at Bryce with her deflated Cation face. I don't think we're ever going to have to be on a Constitution class in the 22nd century again. I hope.
I hope we're never going to have to be in the 22nd century again. I like where we're from.
I look like a monster.
Listen, if we had more time, it would have been fine. If we had more time.
If we had more time, it would have been fine. You walk out of the transporter room. Bryce puts his hand on your shoulder, and as you're like, I look like a monster, and he doesn't disagree. Just puts his hand on your shoulder and walks out into the hallway with you. As Eli trails behind, going, "If we had more time." And the episode ends, and we'll do the debrief next time. The episode ends with we see the Reliant going back around that sun, and like we see the colors and everything as you zoom back out through the the slingshot around the sun, and end up just back in the neutral zone near the Bepi 113. That's it, Bepi 113 system. It takes a minute again. Oakley does not glitch out this time, although he did at one point. And you are back in very quickly able to determine by star positions and such that you are back in your own time. And Graves at the end of it all. So none of you ever remember, like for this point on, it's like the not talked about background character that was never seen again as Brigid Jorgensen just is not among the crew of the ship anymore. And there are private log, and also none of you seem to remember there being a 7th and a half deck, except in logs that you have, Graves, that you did not write, that are directed to be opened by you when you decide. Let's see, what would be the words he would use? There are logs to be opened by you when you decide that time is on your side. Well, it isn't something that wants to hurt you.
Would he also still have the private message Waitley sent requesting to go along on the away mission to the 23rd century?
Well, you guys know you went to the 23rd century and saved a ship. You know that you know that a temporal agent named Franklin Drake helped you 23rd. Sorry, not 20. Yeah. You know that a temporal agent named Drake showed you how to go back and save this ship, which you will find out was the right thing to do, essentially. And the key is, you know that you did it. You don't know that he ever had a deck on your ship. You don't know that Brigid Jorgensen ever served on board your ship, except for the fact that Franklin Drake leaves you, Graves, a number of special messages detailing what you have in that space on your ship, which is a time map. You have a map
I
of time.
see.
And he says
Interesting.
when the logs are noted, they're obviously written by someone who understands temporal theory, because the invitation to open them goes along the lines of many theorize that time is that time is an agent of death and chaos that is always coming out. Time is the fire in which we burn, right? Kind of thing. But he says when you realize that time is on your side, and you should have a look at the logs, Drake, and it comes
Interesting.
directly from Drake. It's and I'm sure eventually you'll open them, and as player knowledge, what's in those logs is how to use the time map and know that something has gone wrong if something goes wrong.
Interesting.
It's nothing but this is how the map works, so you can tell if something has gone wrong and make a report. Not to say that your report would be any more like you might not see it before, one of their main agents does, but here's how to use that thing that we left on your ship because you weren't clear about whether you wanted it going or not.
Understood.
So, he's leaving you basically a cool little science lab. It doesn't have the transporter in it anymore, but it does have the map of time and how to read it. So
Cool.
that's something new that the Reliant has on it. And I hope people enjoyed. I'm sorry it went a little bit long to all our listeners and to the players, but I hope everybody had fun.